I've informed the Queen's private secretary that it's my intention to tender my resignation to the Queen. In the event that the Queen accepts, I shall advise her to invite the Leader of the Opposition to seek to form a government. I wish the next Prime Minister well as he makes the important choices for the future. Thank you and goodbye.
Cave Media was just being born into the world in the midst of one of the greatest recessions in decades. The UK election loomed over the horizon. So I took the opportunity to ask all of my interviewees just what their hopes and fears regarding the upcoming Parliament may be.
I'm Leslie Farnworth and I'm the Aging Well Manager for Age Concern Central Lancashire as we are now. All our services are funded by outside agencies, the Primary Care Trust or Social Services. Again, our services that depend on our commissioners. If they're having a hard time, then perhaps we will have a hard time.
The question in British politics today is how do we make things better without just spending more money? And it's a question I think we are really qualified to answer. Because a big part of that answer is by delivering more for less.
My name is Ian Ferguson. I'm currently employed by an organisation, Preston Council for Voluntary Service. So I say it's always a challenge. I think that the biggest challenge is waiting to see what happens after the next election. A lot of the organisations that we work with in the public sector are now actually dead in the water. There's no new initiatives. It's just we will carry on doing everything that we used to do until somebody tells us to do something different. But no, there's nothing new in the pipe. It's just, watch this space, and you'll see it on the news as soon as we see it.
Is that frustrating for the agencies, or is that de rigueur for election time?
It's de rigueur for election time. I mean, you will always get that in every election, but having been there before, I think most elections aren't regime change elections. Most elections are, you can expect pretty much that the business will carry on as usual. What we have here is a potential regime change election, dependent on how the votes are cast. But more important, regardless of how the votes are cast, there will be a regime change because of the financial situation.
Talks are continuing today, and I had a meeting with David Cameron yesterday, took a call from Gordon Brown. Everyone's trying to be constructive for the good of the country. I'm very keen that the Liberal Democrats should play a constructive role at a time of great economic uncertainty to provide the good government that this country deserves, and throughout that we will continue to be, and I will continue to be, guided by the big changes we want: tax reform, improving education for all children, sorting out the banks and building a new economy from the rubble of the old, and extensive fundamental political reform.
What every party gets in, whether it's old change or no change, it will certainly be a different set of policies.
Samantha McHale, and I'm a Regeneration Investment Officer for Compton Housing Group.
And I'm John Burns, I'm Group Property and Business Development Director.
My work is specifically around regeneration, and that includes communities predominantly doing more and more work for themselves and improving their own environments. And I think regardless of the election results, all the politicians will look for cost efficiencies and cost cutting, and that will mean it will drive down the level of statutory services, and communities will be expected to pick some of those services up for themselves and delivered to themselves, which will mean a growth in the community, voluntary and third sector, which is an area in which I work. So I think my changes, or the changes in my work, will actually be quite a positive one, quite an increase in opportunities, and they will look really new and innovative ways of delivering services to improve health, education, housing, employment, a whole gambit of things. So from my point of view, I'm really not mad at the results. I think there'll just be more and more work within the generation.
So as we film, the votes are in, they've all been counted, and we still currently are not sure who's going to be our government. How is the change of government going to affect you?
A bit like the old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. I think the result was the one that probably was most likely on the cards. But, as you say, as we speak, we're still in the process of sorting out what's happening at a national level. We're perhaps in a slightly more comfortable position here in Preston if you can project our experience of the local political situation to the national level, because we have had a council for the past several years with no overall control, and therefore we've had to, or the politicians have had to, come to terms with mechanisms for enabling them to continue the good administration of the council in some quite difficult political and financial circumstances. So that perhaps could give us some confidence to expecting that something sensible will emerge and can emerge at the national political level. There's 2 points that I want to make. One is that broadly, in terms of economic policy or regeneration policy, while there are differences between the three main political parties, the direction of travel is pretty similar. So we wouldn't expect to have to make any handbrake turns, if I can put it that way. The second part really is about the availability of finance and where the public finances are going to be. So far, the public sector hasn't been affected as badly as the private sector has by the recession. But now, with the moves to close down the public sector borrowing gap, all the parties are saying there are going to be significant reductions in public expenditure. Now, it's not yet clear on which model that will happen, whether it will be a conservative one, which talks about making more significant cuts in this financial year, or whether it's on a Lib Dem or Labour one which says, yes, we'll need to make significant cuts, but they won't start until the next financial year. We will have to be planning on the basis of making significant budget reductions, and by significant I mean anything between 10 and indeed 30%. Well, the overall budget of the council is about, this is a district council, you'd appreciate, is about 40 million. Probably about 26 of that, 28 of that, is what you might call core spend, and the rest is housing benefit monies. So of the monies which are directly spent by Preston City Council on its activities and its residents and its communities and businesses, we might be looking at anywhere from 6 million upwards.
So in conclusion, Preston Council should take over Parliament?
I'm not sure if our members would welcome that, because I think one of the strengths of local government is the commitment that the local councillors have to the local area. And I think that some of them do want to choose to go on to national political arenas, but I think that they probably feel they've got quite enough on their plate at present without taking on the national issues.